Hi there everybody. In this video I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on this. This is probably the craziest, most insane micro quadcopter I have ever seen. It's the Flywoo Venom H20. It's a hexacopter, 6 motors, 6 2-inch, 5-bladed props, and as far as I can tell this quad is just designed to pack as much power and thrust into as small a package as is humanly possible, or inhumanly possible in this case. So I'm going to be taking you through this quad on the bench, and then I'm going to be showing you some flight footage. And yeah, I hope you enjoy my review of this little quad. This quad was sent to me by Flywoo free of charge, but I've had no other compensation for this video, and Flywoo has had no editorial control over what I say. Let's get right into it. Alright, so let me take you through the key features of this beautiful little micro on the bench. So the first thing is it's a hexacopter. So we've got 6 motors and 6 5-bladed 2-inch props. So this is where the Venom gets its massive thrust and power for its size from. Each of these 1203 size motors is 4850 kV, so that's about right for cruising around on 3S. But if you want really to get the most performance, which is I guess what you're looking for with this quad, you're going to want to run it on 4S, anywhere from 450 milliamp hours all the way up to as much as 750 milliamp hours to get the longest possible flight time. The stack that they've used in this little quad is another really great feature. It's got an F745 processor, so that means it's got the performance of an F7, and it's also got a large amount of flash storage, which means that even as Betaflight adds new features in the future, you're going to be able to use all of those features because there's plenty of spare storage on this flight controller. It comes with an 8 megabyte black box chip, so you can do black box logging and tuning on this quad, which is amazing to see on a 16mm flight control stack. I wouldn't have believed it if you'd have told me. The version I have here has the Avatar VTX, but you can also get a version with a naked Caddx Vista or an analog VTX as well. The camera is a 14mm camera, and the Avatar version just comes with the standard Walksnail Avatar 14mm camera. The DJI version with the naked Vista comes with the Caddx Polar Nano, and the analog version comes with the Caddx Baby Ratel 2. You can get either a plug and play version, a Express LRS version, a FreeSky version, or a TBS Crossfire version. And if you're just getting into FPV and this is your first quad, I would definitely go with the Express LRS version. That's going to be the radio link that gives you the longevity into the future. Another key feature of this little quad is this cable here, which allows you to plug directly into a naked GoPro. If you're using a Flywoo naked GoPro camera, you can just plug that cable straight in the back there, and that will provide the power to run your GoPro from the flight pack. Now this cable here provides battery voltage, which means that you're going to need to make sure that whatever camera you're using has a regulator to step that voltage down to typically 5 volts that the camera can run off. Otherwise you do risk frying a camera that's designed to maybe run off a 4.2 volt lithium ion battery. Overall, I would say the build quality of this quad is really good. All the solder joints are neat, all the wires are nicely twisted and tied down, so that's really nice to see. Looking at the frame, it's a single piece bottom plate, 2.5mm thick, with these braces between the 3 arms to provide a little bit of extra stiffness and durability. The final thing to do is to pop this guy on the scale. So just the quad, the Walksnail Avatar version coming in at 108 grams. If I add a 300 milliamp hour 4S, it's going to come out to 150 grams. And then if I add the Flywoo Naked GoPro Hero 9 on the top here, that's going to come to 195 grams. So you're going to be under 200 grams all up while flying with this naked action camera. If you use one of a slightly different weight, I don't think it's going to matter too much. you're always going to be under that 250 gram limit. I think that about covers everything on the bench. So let's take a look at a little bit of flight footage and then I'll give you my conclusions. So let's look at some footage now, and this is shot with the GoPro Hero 9, ISO locked at 100, and I'm using 2.7K Super View, 60 frames per second, and I've got an ND8 filter on to allow that shutter speed to slow down just a little bit and get a little bit of motion blur. And I'm really impressed with how well this really tiny micro quad carries this, reasonably sized action camera. There are a little bit of wobbles and bobbles in the unstabilized footage. All of this footage that I'm showing you now is unstabilized, straight as it came out of the camera. But I think if you were to use something like Real Steady Go, or even just do a little bit of stabilization in DaVinci Resolve, all of this would clean right up and you get very, very smooth footage. In terms of how it feels compared to, let's say, a 5-inch quad, here's a full throttle punch out. It's not quite as powerful and not quite as fast as a full-sized 5-inch quad, particularly when carrying the GoPro on top, but it's perfectly usable for cruising around, following moderately fast objects. You're not going to be chasing anything super fast, but the small size of the drone means that you can fly it in areas where you just wouldn't be able to fly a 5-inch drone and get some really amazing shots, flying through super tight gaps and things like that. And overall, I think the tune that Flywoo have put on the drone is pretty good as well. There's a little bit of prop wash in some very aggressive moves, but overall, I think the tune is good and the drone flies really, really nicely. And certainly, if you were going to use this drone for a period of time, you could also try and improve on the tune as well. I have a bunch of videos on how you can improve the tune on little bind and flies like this to get the most out of them. But even without any tuning, it flies beautifully. The final bit of footage I want to show you is shot in a more wooded area, and it's in this type of environment where the really tiny size of this Flywoo Venom really comes into its own. You can fly through gaps that you would not think that you could fly through with a 5-inch quad with this thing. Because it's so much smaller, you can fit into those smaller spaces, cruise through those tiny gaps, and really explore in a lot of detail all of this environment. And the extra power and thrust from those 6 motors really help the quad manage the weight of the GoPro and cruise through this environment very, very smoothly. Even unstabilized, this footage is surprisingly smooth for such a tiny, tiny drone. And this, I think, is the type of environment where the Flywoo Venom really, really excels. Just squeezing through all these tiny, tiny gaps, cruising through all this foliage, and getting some really nice kind of exploratory shots of this wooded area. And to be able to do all that and enjoy the quality of footage that you get from the GoPro, so you're not having to use a smaller camera like an Insta360 Go, but you get that kind of image quality from the GoPro, but in that tiny, tiny form factor is kind of what this drone is all about. So that brings us to the end of the video. And as always, the question, who is this little drone right for? Who should buy this drone? Well, at a price of about $350, this drone is competing with Cinewhoops like the GEP-RC Cinelog 2.5 and the Beta FPV Pavo 30. But it's a bit of a different proposition to other 2.5 or 3-inch Cinewhoops. The platform is really small. This is going to be able to fit through really, really tight gaps. And it's also designed to be run, I think, mainly in an open prop configuration. So you're going to have a lot less drag with the Venom H20 than you are with a typical 2.5-inch Cinewhoop. It's going to go faster, it's going to be able to get more dynamic shots, and it's going to be able to fit through those tiny spaces as well. In terms of authority and how stable the footage is, the drone does a fantastic job. I think that Hexacopter layout gives it a bit more authority than you would expect from a drone of this size. I certainly loved flying it, and I loved the ability to go exploring with it. So if that's kind of primarily what you want to do, and you want something really, really small that you can fit through all of those tight spaces, then I would definitely recommend the Venom H20. In terms of the componentry that Flywoo have used on this, I mean, it's no expense spared. F7 flight controller, F745 flight controller, black box memory on board, 16 amp ESCs, good quality motors and props, and it comes with all the top end digital FPV systems that you'd want, DJI, Avatar, all of that stuff. So they really, there's nothing that lets this drone down at all. As for whether I'm going to keep flying it, the answer is a definite yes. So Flywoo, I'm sorry you're not getting this one back. I'm going to keep this one and keep flying it and enjoying it. That's all that I have for you for this review. Leave a comment down below if you have any thoughts on the drone, if you've bought one and your experiences with it. And if this video has helped you decide to invest in this little drone, the Venom H20, or any products from Flywoo, there are some affiliate links down in the video description, and they're one way you can support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. You just click that link and buy anything from the vendor. I get a small commission, and it helps support the channel and videos like this. That's all I have for you for today. So until next time, I wish you all very, very happy flying.